any other person doing Batman, changing who Batman is, giving Jim Gordon. I just watched Jim Norton's new stand-up special, so I don't know why that slipped in there. Anyways. Hey guys, welcome to episode 47 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going really well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm getting really excited for Indie PopCon. I'm excited / stressed out because we're not quite ready for it yet, but we're getting there.
That's all right. You'll have an extra day to prepare yourself and prepare everything.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be there Friday, so...
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of bummed about that.
I'll be holding things down at the booth on Friday for the Nerds You're Looking For, but then we'll both be there Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And we're going to be live recording like we did last year. We're also going to be asking you guys what you're into. We talk a lot about that on the podcast, and we thought it would just be kind of cool to ask you guys what you're into. So we won't be doing Nerd Origins this year. Like we did last year. We're just going to be asking what we're into.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of.
Yeah. If this is your first episode, that's just how we start the episode, by talking about what we're into. It's going to be a little bit different this episode. Tyler texted me a couple of days ago and said we're going to be a little short on nerd news. So we just decided to do a little bit of an extended what we're into. Normally we only talk about like maybe one or two things, if they're related to one another. But this time we're going to do it a little bit extended what we're into. I don't know about Tyler, but I have 3 things I want to talk about this episode. So I guess we'll just, go back and forth.
Yeah, that works.
All right, Tyler, what is your first, what you're into? I don't know why I made that so awkward, but yeah, what's your first thing?
Okay. So all of what I'm into are going to be, I have, I think 4, and one of them something I'm looking forward to, and they're all going to be relatively short and sweet. So The first one, Game of Thrones wrapped up last week, season 5, and I think we're going to do a season synopsis or a season review here in the next few weeks, so I won't get too much into it, but it did end with a bang, as most people probably know. I won't spoil anything, obviously, but a lot of stuff happened in this last episode of the season that was really monumental for the show, and, this season got overall a lot of shit. I know that some people don't feel like it was as strong as some of the past seasons, and there were some instances that happened throughout the season that some people did not agree with. But in my opinion, I thought that it was just as strong as any of the other seasons. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and Game of Thrones has just been one of those shows that has been able to, in my opinion, maintain what's good about it.
The quality.
Yeah, maintain its quality. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with all of the stories that are interweaving throughout the show. So it's not one singular story that you're just getting different points of view on for 5 years. It's a bunch of different evolving stories, which is why I think that it's had a good amount of longevity, and why I think it's going to continue to go on for many more seasons. So that is my first one.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that some of the earlier characters that are still in the show, I was thinking about this while watching season 5 finale. Some of these characters have gone through so much, like the arc of Tyrion.
Oh,
Is it Tyrion? I always get him and his dad confused.
Yeah, it's Tyrion. Tywin's his dad.
Yeah. Those 2 T names, it gets me every time. He's gone through so much. It's crazy to think about where he was at the first season. Yeah. Now he's kind of a badass. Not really a badass, but certainly much more than he was in the first couple of seasons.
Oh, for sure.
So I was actually thinking about that exact thing while I was watching the season finale.
A few episodes ago, we did our What's Your Favorite Game of Thrones Character? And you said yours was Bronn. How did you feel Bronn was used in season 5?
I liked him and Jamie's storyline. Once they get captured, spoiler alert, I guess I probably shouldn't have said that.
It's not that big of a deal.
His is kind of lame. Like, I didn't really like him kind of perving on that little girl. She's really young.
I don't feel, I mean, how old do you think she was? I mean,
I don't know.
She's over 18 because
we see our boobies.
Yep. But I thought it was kind of, I don't know, I like their chemistry.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of creepy because he's old.
It's not the creepiest thing that's happened on this show.
No, for sure.
I mean, we're talking about a show with incest
and rape.
Yeah. So not the creepiest or worst thing that's happened on this show for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I did like how it kind of set up that twist with that storyline in the season finale.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool the way they did that. But for the most part, I was kind of disappointed once him and Jamie get captured. His storyline, it kind of just falls off a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the lesser storylines of the season, considering everything else that was going on. But
yeah, for sure.
At least they didn't just write him out of the show because Tyrion's no longer around.
Yeah, for sure.
It was cool how they paired him and Jamie up. All right, so what's your first one of what you're into this week?
I know. It's weird, right?
Yeah, it is.
Well, I'm going to talk about something that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I bought The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, and I've just been playing the shit out of this game. I've just been completely addicted to it. It's exactly what I want from our RPG. It's just such an expansive world that I just get lost in it. Like, I will literally spend hours in this game, and I was like this a lot with Fable and just like Red Dead Redemption, where you just kind of get lost in it, and I would spend hours and realize that I have not done anything with the actual like main quest or even some of the side quests. There's like special like treasure hunts that you can just kind of stumble across. There's like monster nests that you can come and destroy. And I love playing. There's this card game that's kind of like Magic the Gathering, where you have this deck and you're trying to collect all these other different characters and you can make your deck a lot stronger. It's called Gwent. And I spend hours just going to like different towns and playing the different vendors, in Gwent. And I've gotten really pretty fucking good at the game. And the first time that you play a lot of these vendors, they will give you some of like the rare cards. And so I'll spend hours just playing the card game within the game and not even play the game itself.
Yeah. So
that's really cool. It's so fun that literally my wife, who's not a huge gamer, she's an artist. So she works on this painting, and then that's usually when I play my video games. And so she was taking a break one night, and she literally sat in there and we were chit-chatting while I was playing the game, and like 2 hours went by, and she's like, God damn, I gotta get back to work. She got lost in just watching the game with me. So I think that's probably one of the higher compliments I can give the game, that it's so interesting, not just to play, but to watch. My wife, who is not a gamer at all, kind of got lost in just watching it with me.
Let me just say, I know your wife, and I know she did not say, God damn, I got to get back to work.
No, that was me paraphrasing it, sort of. But yeah, I mean, it's just fantastic. It reminds me a lot of Red Dead Redemption, where you can kind of just ride the horse and just kind of explore the map and hunt animals and just kind of forage for different berries and stuff like that, because you can make potions and stuff, so you need certain ingredients to make these potions, and you can kind of just get lost doing that. It's a fantastic game. There's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up, just kind of be objective. There are a couple of things that bother me about the game. The main one, and both of these are kind of nitpicking a little bit, but the main one is there's things in the game that you have to purchase in order to continue with the story, and the amount of money you have to spend is not in proportion with the amount of money that you get from doing side quests and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to acquire money in this game. And so I actually had to stoop down and do a glitch. There's a glitch in the game. Well, there's one of two. They got rid of one of them, which basically you could go to this town and there's a vendor that you could buy seashells from. And then there's an armor right next to it where you could dismantle those seashells, and they would give you pearls. And then you could go to this loan shark and sell those for like 3 times it costs you to buy the seashells and to begin with. And you could just, cause they're like right next to each other, you could just do that over and over again and you can get a ton of money.
Yeah.
Well, they got rid of that. The vendor no longer, like they did an update and the vendor no longer sells seashells, but there's still a monster nest that you can get them from. And there's a glitch with the monster nests where once you destroy them, as long as you don't take everything out of that monster nest, cause you could loot it, you just like spin the camera around and you hit the loot button again and everything's back in the nest, even though you've taken stuff out of that. Yeah. As long as you don't take everything out of it, just leave one thing. It lets you do that like 30 times and there's seashells in a particular nest. And so I do it that way, which I don't like to take advantage of those glitches because with a game like this, there's always going to be those.
Yeah.
And I normally don't like to take advantage of those because I kind of feel like that's blurring the line between playing legit and just cheating.
Oh, I think you're cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way I justify it in my mind is it's really hard to get money in this game. And so I don't usually.
I really thought you were going to say that like your character's a prostitute now and.
No. I mean, you could buy prostitutes in the game, but I don't know if you can become a prostitute. I certainly haven't gotten that far yet, if it is possible. But, and the second thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is definitely nitpicking, the graphics are beautiful. It's a beautiful world. I mean, they put a ton of detail in it. But for some reason, the hair on the characters looks really weird to me. Like it doesn't act like natural hair. And maybe I'm the worst person to talk about hair for our listeners that don't know me personally. I'm bald. So maybe I'm not the best person to judge hair, but it just looks weird to me. Like it doesn't look natural.
I feel like most games, especially RPGs, have a hard time with hair.
Yeah.
It's a weird phenomenon, especially games where you can design your character.
Yeah,
like the
for
design
sure.
your character phrase when you're cycling through hair options, it always looks terrible.
Yeah. I like how in this game, and games in general have gotten to this point. I remember old RPGs, like you customize your character, but then when you would go into cutscenes, it would go back to the default because they couldn't, something about how they developed the game. They just made the cutscenes. So it was weird. But I mean, games now, it's like you can customize your character to look whatever.
Is there any customization in Witcher 3 or are you just like that guy that's on the cover?
You're that guy on the cover, but you can customize, like there's different armor and stuff like that looks completely different than your generic armor that you start with. And you can get haircuts and whatnot. And it all looks like your character in the cutscenes, which is, like I said, not that impressive because a lot of games have been able to do that in the last 5-10 years. But I remember some old RPGs where you would get to the cutscene, it would look nothing like your customizable character. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I know both of those are kind of nitpicky, but I mean, I just want to kind of be objective because I was kind of praising it, and there are a couple of things that bother me about the game. But
would you have a rating for this game if you had to?
It's tough because, like I said, I've kind of gotten lost doing a lot of the side quest type of stuff. So I've really probably only gotten about maybe a quarter of the way through the main story. So it's kind of tough for me to give it a star rating. But right now, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and this is a game that I'll probably end up having to circle back to because Arkham Knight comes out in a few days, and I probably won't play Witcher for a while after that. So.
Okay, cool.
All right. So what is your second what you're into?
Staying on the HBO side of things, I went and saw the Entourage movie earlier this week. I think I've said it on the podcast before, but Entourage is a series I watched. It was something that my roommates and I bonded over in college, even though it's a very mediocre show. It was just at a time when people were just starting to binge TV shows and TV on DVD craze was happening. So, we had finished something and we needed something else to watch, and Entourage was there. So that's what we stuck with, and I watched the entire series, and I felt like I had to go see the movie just to keep up with the story, and boy, was it mediocre. I mean, it's just like they basically took like 3 episodes or maybe 4 episodes from the show and smashed them all together to make a movie. It very much felt like the show, which I would say is a good thing. I would hate to go see an Entourage movie and it not feel like the TV show I watched. So they did a good job there, but it was just so unnecessary. Like the series ends pretty well and it wraps up all the characters pretty well. There's a cliffhanger with the Ari character that Jeremy Piven plays.
Yeah.
And it's played out in this movie. I think that they had talked about making this movie as the show ended a few years ago. So I'm sure that's why they did that. But it was so unnecessary. And it bombed at the box office, which I can't imagine they wouldn't have expected. Like,
yeah. With just the other movies coming out around the same time.
Well, why would somebody go see this movie if they didn't watch, if you went to, so you never watched Entourage, right?
I have seen, I think, 2 or 3 episodes, and it's funny because it was when I was visiting you at IU.
Oh, is that when we were?
Yeah, we were
it?
waiting. We were waiting to go out like that night or something like that, and we watched a couple episodes, and those the only episodes I've ever seen of the show.
So, if you went and saw this movie, you would be, I wouldn't say you'd be lost, but I mean, because you can follow a story.
Yeah,
but
sure.
You wouldn't know the intricacies of these characters and what character building has gone on for however many seasons that it had on the show, on air. I think it's like 8 or 9 seasons. Maybe I'm being a little generous, but quite a few seasons of character development, and it's referenced throughout this movie. So they had to have known that this movie was only going to work for people that watched the show, which I can't imagine is a gigantic audience, like the audience that went and saw Jurassic World or Avengers or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they expected this movie to do, but from what I understand, it bombed. There's a lot of cool cameos in it from celebrities.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool to see, but it was just really, like I said, unnecessary.
Yeah, I had no interest in seeing this movie whatsoever. Like I said, I've only seen a couple episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I could have been able to follow it just because in the couple episodes, like, I kind of understand the dynamic between the characters. Now, I mean, you mentioned there's multiple seasons, so obviously I'm not completely caught up, and I'm sure that there was a lot of inside jokes between the characters. That seems like that would be the type of show that would have a lot of that type of stuff, because it's a friend dynamic type of show.
I mean, I don't want to give this show too much credit. Like, it had character development over however many seasons it ran, but it's not like a Game of Thrones movie where there's 5 seasons of all sorts of crazy shit that happens. Like, the show didn't do a whole lot,
Yeah.
So I don't want to give it too much credit and say if you didn't watch the show, you couldn't follow it. It's just that I don't think that there would be any appreciation there for this movie if you weren't familiar with the show.
Sure.
All right. So that's what I got for Entourage. It's very, very mediocre.
All right. I'm going to talk about a TV show now. A show on FX called The Comedians. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, Josh Gad and Billy Crystal, right?
Yeah, it's based on a Swedish show, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It's just the 2 characters' names, and I'm not even going to try because I'll just butcher it. But basically, it's a mockumentary. It's a show. The show is them making this show, the Billy and Josh show. It's a sketch comedy show that's going to be on FX, but the show, The Comedians, is about them making the show and kind of how horrible it. Not horrible. The show's not bad. The sketch show isn't bad, but just how horrible it's run and stuff like that. Yeah. Which, I mean, the first couple episodes are not great. Like it takes a little bit to kind of find its groove, but I really like it. It's very subtle, which is kind of my style. Like, I like shows that are just a little bit more subtle, not really in your face with the comedy, which, the last thing that I want to talk about, it's a movie, and the comedy in that particular movie is much more in your face. So I kind of like the more subtle comedies. This show, I find myself smiling a lot, not really laughing out loud. There's not a lot of just laughing so hard I cry type of moments in this show. There's been a couple, but for the most part, I just kind of enjoy watching it. I don't necessarily laugh a lot. A lot of the show kind of focuses on Billy and Josh's chemistry together, and I think they're great in the show. Obviously they play fictional versions of themselves, but I like how they are constantly kind of playing Josh Gad up like he's kind of a douchebag, and he's not very, I mean, he's successful, but he's almost by accident he's successful. Like, they make a lot of 1600 pen jokes in there, and how he's really proud of that show, but it didn't get picked up for a second season. They're kind of shitting on that show a little bit, and they play that up a lot.
Do they bring up Olaf?
Occasionally they do, but they don't. I think they made more 1600 pen jokes.
See, that's weird because honestly, like Olaf is his claim. Like, that's his cow. Like, what's the phrase? Like his milk cow? I don't know. I should have just got my mouth shut.
Yeah.
That's like where his bread and butter is.
Yeah.
Olaf now.
They actually made a pretty funny joke, this past episode where they're filming their show and there's like this kid that won this auction, like a charity auction. So he gets to hang out with them on the set. And of course his mom's with him, and Josh Gad is hitting on his mom the whole time. And the last episode, or the last little bit of the episode is him, like the kid's mom is in Josh Gad's dressing room, and he shuts the door and you hear her, "Oh, you're a dirty snowman." So, they do occasionally make Frozen jokes, but actually they talk more about Book of Mormon, which I actually had forgotten that was kind of his breakout, role. And then they make, of course, the 1600 pen jokes, but really Billy Crystal kind of carries this show, which, obviously you would expect. I'm not a huge Billy Crystal fan. I respect his career, but he's not necessarily one of the guys I really look up to as far as comedy is concerned. He talks a lot about, in this show, they do it where he doesn't like to, what he calls play blue, which is a lot of like ball and dick jokes and stuff like that. Like he's more like wholesome. And he actually, in this past episode, he talks a lot about that, about how basically the whole idea of the show is Josh is starting to write some of the sketches, and he writes this, porn star sketch, and Billy doesn't want it in. And so but he doesn't want to kill it. Like he doesn't want to tell Josh that he doesn't want it in. So there's a huge, scheme that he tries to pull. So Josh doesn't know that he's the one that's killing the sketch. And, basically at the end, obviously Josh finds out. And it's just, he explains why he doesn't like to do that kind of stuff, that older people know him and then younger people can also appreciate it because he's wholesome and stuff like that, which isn't really my style, but I respect it. It's just a really fun show and I enjoy watching it. Like I said, it's not laugh out loud. It's just, I appreciate it and I find myself smiling a lot.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the show. It's definitely on my must watch list. So is the first season done yet?
No, they're doing I don't know if it's an hour long or if they're just playing 2 episodes back to back, but I know next week is their season finale.
How many episodes was the first season, do you know?
I want to say it's either 12 or 13. I can't remember if they're considering this hour 2 back-to-back episodes or if it's just one long episode. So if it's just one long episode, I think it's 12. If not, it'll be 13. But I really enjoy the show, especially I think it either follows Louis or it leads up to Louis, which is one of my favorite shows on television right now. So it's kind of a nice little comedy block that they have going over at FX, which doesn't surprise me because they do really good stuff. I kind of wish that they had kept Legit, which I don't know if Legit was on FX or FXX, but it would have been nice to have like 3 of those shows back to back to back because I really enjoyed that show as well.
I forgot that FXX even still existed.
Yeah.
Why
it's weird because they made it as their like comedy, like FX was going to have The Americans and Justified and it was going to kind of be their drama. And then FXX was going to be their comedy, but yet Louis and the comedians are not on FX. I don't get it.
What's even on FXX even more? Always.
Well, they have reruns of Parks and Rec. They have, The League. They have It's Always Sunny. And I guess Legit was on there. I don't remember if Legit was FX or FXX.
I mean, this is going to be the League's last season. And
which is good.
How much more fuel does Always Sunny have in the tank?
I don't know. This last season was pretty fucking hilarious.
Like the interviews I hear with these guys, I don't think that they're too interested in like continuing for too much longer.
Yeah.
So then what happens?
I don't know. I mean, they seem to be picking some good stuff. I mean, obviously, from what I hear, they kind of let them do whatever they want. Like, I know Louis basically just writes, directs, edits, and just here's the show, and they don't really put a whole lot of input. That's basically the only reason he did the show to begin with, from what I understand. So it seems like they're kind of hands off, and which is good because if you can hire good people, you're going to get good shit.
Yep.
And I'm bummed that they didn't give Legit more of a shot because that second season was fucking hilarious.
I never saw it. Never watched it.
Oh, I love Jim Jeffries. He's hilarious.
Yep. Nope, not familiar.
All right. So what is your next, what you're into?
You mind if I just do 2 quick ones? Because
Yeah,
my
sure.
last 2, and then you can do your last one.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I watched the first episode of Bloodline.
Oh, yeah?
After you praised it, and I know that you said that Matt from the Obsessive Viewer was a huge fan as well. And that first episode's really boring, dude.
Oh, really?
Super boring. I'm gonna keep going with it because I'm intrigued, but it was a tough watch for me. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I wasn't connecting with it. But I'm not just gonna give up on it. I have high hopes that the mystery surrounding things kind of keeps getting better. So I'm gonna stick with it.
I don't know if I'm completely off base here or not, but do you think it might be because, I mean, you have a sibling, you have a younger sister, but that's, I mean, you don't have, I have 2 siblings, and I know Matt has a couple of siblings as well. Would you think that we related to it a little bit more because we have a couple of siblings?
I mean, that could be. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I relate to other things that I have nothing similar with.
Yeah. It really hit home for me, a lot of it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like I don't
have a drug dealing brother, but
I love Game of Thrones, but I don't live in medieval times. Well,
obviously, but
there aren't any
the themes are dragons. Yeah. I mean, if you put it that way, you don't have, I mean, you can't relate to a lot of things that you watch, but the themes are the same. It would
be super boring if I had to relate to all of it. But
that's what really intrigued me about the show was I liked the family dynamic because obviously my family doesn't own a hotel in the Keys, but the themes are still there. The family dynamic and the family arguments and stuff like that I can relate to are still there.
I mean, there were some suspenseful moments with like the family arguments and stuff. It was just the drier parts. I didn't really hold my attention too much, but I'm intrigued kind of about the mystery surrounding what happened, even though it kind of seems, is there any kind of twist? Because it seems kind of obvious to me.
There's not really I wouldn't classify it as a twist. It really builds well to the last couple of episodes. Like you understand why they do what they do.
Okay. Yeah.
And I really like the Danny in the show. Like he really builds well and he's a really good villain. Like he plays it so well. Like he's one of those guys that always is like one step ahead of the rest of them. And I really like that.
I'm going to stick with it. And I just that first episode I didn't connect with. So I'm hoping that the rest of it I do.
All right, cool.
The second one's something I'm looking forward to. We're recording this Saturday. So by the time this releases, it will have aired. But tomorrow True Detective comes back, which I'm super excited about. I'm a little nervous because there have been reviews that have come out for the pilot.
Yep.
I guess it's not the pilot, but
the first
episode of season 2 being a completely new story from season 1. And the reviews are very mediocre, which worries me, but I always want to make an opinion for myself. So it doesn't sway me away from watching the show. I'm very intrigued to see what they'll do this season and to see if it gets better as it goes on.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is 6 episodes like the first season. I'm sure the answer's out there. I just don't know off the top of my head. I hope it's shorter.
I thought the first season was longer than that, but
maybe it was 8 episodes.
It
wasn't more than 10. It was 6.
I want to say that it was 10, but I don't know. I don't remember.
If only there were a way to find out. I just remember it was really short because I watched it when I moved into my house and I didn't have cable. I didn't have internet. It's 8 episodes.
Okay.
And then season 2 is going to be 8 episodes. Because I remember I watched the first season really quick.
Yeah. I'm kind of debating what I want to do because I don't have HBO. I don't have HBO Now or anything like that. But let's just say I have a way of watching this show. I don't know if I want to just wait until the Blu-ray comes out because I really enjoyed those couple of days watching it with my wife, just waiting for the Blu-ray to come out. But I think the time for TV on DVD is kind of over. So I don't know if I just want to watch it.
I don't know. There's something about binging a show that's fun.
Yeah.
Like binging Daredevil was awesome and watching True Detective last year just in, 2 sittings or 3 sittings or whatever it was awesome. But I'm very much a person that can't wait. And especially when if I were waiting for Game of Thrones like I used to.
There's no way.
It would be spoiled for me nonstop. So that's kind of why I keep up the shows more now, week to week, is because I don't want things to be spoiled for me. If I have to wait a year till the Blu-ray comes out, then somebody's going to say something and ruin it for me. So that's why I think I'm going to stick with week to week.
All right, cool, man.
All right. What is your last thing that you're into?
Like I mentioned before, I'm going to talk about a movie. They Came Together, which I know a movie that you have watched, sort of, I guess.
I fell asleep.
Yeah. It's just a satire of romantic comedies written and directed by, David Wayne, who did The State and Role Models and like a million other things.
Wet Hot American Summer, right?
Yep.
Yep.
He does it with, there's the two Michaels. I can't remember their last names.
Michael Ian Black and Michael, it starts with an S, I think.
Yeah. Something like
Schumer?
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking Amy Schumer.
But anyways, it's stars Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler, and like I said, it's just a satire of romantic comedies. I really enjoyed it. It was funny. Like basically, it takes all the beats of a romantic comedy, and it's just really just kind of shows you how ridiculous it is. Like I think if you're a fan of romantic comedies and you have a sense of humor about it and realize that those movies aren't the best, I think you definitely would enjoy They Came Together, because it's really funny, and it shows you how ridiculous it is. Like I said, when I talked about the comedians is a much more subtle comedy. This at times was much more like in your face. It reminded me of those like Not Another Teen Movie and like Scary Movie type of humor where it's really in your face and ridiculous. And I didn't really like those moments of the movie. Like there's one part where Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler are having sex for the first time, and they're like kissing each other, and they're getting really riled up, and they're like bumping into shit, and there's like just like shelves of just random shit in their way, and they just keep bumping into it, and it just reminded me a lot of a bit that like one of those Scary Movies would do, and I'm not a fan of that type of comedy. So there's certain scenes in there that I don't really like, but for the most part, it's really funny. Paul Rudd, his little brother, is played by Max Greenfield, who is in New Girl.
Yeah.
And their dynamic is really great. I enjoyed their scenes together. But for the most part, I would definitely suggest this movie, but just kind of keep in mind that it's kind of ridiculous at times. Like the ending just kind of keeps going. Like it could have ended a bunch of times before that. It just kind of gets more and more ridiculous. And there's a bit of a twist at the very end that I really appreciated, because basically it's Amy Poehler and Paul Rudd explaining how they met to Bill Hader and, God damn it, what is her name from Kimmy Schmidt? I can't remember what her name is, but they're just like on a double date, and then there's a twist at the end that I really appreciated. So all in all, I would suggest this movie. Just know that it gets kind of ridiculous at parts.
I mean, that's reminded me watching a lot of Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
I watched that for the first time a few weeks ago, and that got really ridiculous at certain parts, and I wasn't expecting that. But, I mean, it was still funny and still good. So I want to give They Came Together another try. I just
for sure.
fell asleep, so can't really speak to it.
Yeah, there's certain parts that I really appreciate. The more subtle parts, like I said, that's just kind of my style. So if you like more ridiculous, kind of in your face comedy, you'll definitely appreciate this movie a little bit more than I did. Not saying that I didn't like it, because I definitely did, but I probably will never watch it again. If that tells you anything.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't deter me too much.
Okay.
Like I still want to see it.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely suggest it.
All right, cool.
All right. So I think that about do it for our extended what we're into. So we're just going to move on to our next segment, which is just plainly called comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics, and we just like to spotlight one that we're reading each episode. So Tyler, what are you reading this week?
I'm going to talk about both of them really quick.
Sure.
So Batman 41 came out about a week and a half ago, and last week I didn't talk about
Still haven't read it.
Last week I didn't read it. I talked about Arkham Knight number 5, I think, instead.
Yep.
And I hate that whenever we come to comics, I talk about Batman nonstop. But I mean, what are you going to do? He has some of the character has some of the best comics out there right now.
For sure.
And I mean, we both love Batman, so it's just kind of something I'm going to gravitate towards. Anyways,
as you're wearing a Batman t-shirt.
Yeah, this is Batman Beyond though.
It's
It's
still Batman.
Batman related. But I don't know if we've talked about it. You don't know who the new Batman is, right?
No, I do not.
So it's been everywhere, and it was revealed on Free Comic Book Day, and it's not really a secret anymore, so I'm going to tell you who the new Batman is, whether you like it or not, because the book starts out with you knowing who the new Batman is, and it doesn't, lead up to his identity.
Okay.
So the new Batman is Jim Gordon.
Okay,
And
that makes sense.
He's in a robot Batman suit that is basically commissioned by the city and by the police department, and he has a secret identity. Only a few people know who he is, including the person who kind of ropes him into becoming the new Batman. But it's basically like a complete lifestyle change for him. And it really works. It sounds weird, and it is weird given that Bruce Wayne's no longer around, but it really works, and it's really cool. He fights a new character that I don't think has ever been in a Batman comic before. It was created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo for this comic, and I forget what they refer to him as, but he's like an energy force, and so that's a pretty cool fight that takes place throughout the comic. And then there's a cool little twist at the end that is going to be really intriguing going forward. So I've said it before, I completely trust Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, anything they want to do with Batman and the character, because they've just consistently knocked it out of the park with this 41 issue run that they've done. And I hope that they don't stop anytime soon. So yeah, you need to read that ASAP.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot I can add. I mean, I could just back up what you said. I mean, I trust them completely. Like any other person doing Batman, changing who Batman is, giving Jim Gordon. I just watched Jim Norton's new stand-up special, so I don't know why that slipped in there. Anyways, any other person giving him the Batman suit, I would find, oh my God, they're ruining Batman. They're completely jumping the shark. But because they're doing it, it's just like, okay, I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it, because they're just going to crush it.
And they are. It's awesome. And then the second comic I just want to talk about really quick, just came out this week, is called Justice League of America, #1. So this is coming out of Convergence, which is wrapped up a few weeks ago, which was DC's big series-wide, I guess you wouldn't say series-wide, it's like their company-wide arc that takes all of the characters from all of their different comics and puts them together in this storyline. And what I love about this is not only is it a gorgeous comic book, it's written and drawn by a guy named Brian Hitch, but it's a story that takes place in a vacuum.
Sure.
So you look at the Batman comic. I just talked about how Jim Gordon is the new Batman and Bruce Wayne is theoretically dead. And Superman right now, his standalone comic, he's lost his powers and his identity's been revealed to the world. And Green Lantern right now, Hal Jordan's been excommunicated. So obviously it would be really hard to pull these characters together to make a Justice League. But this comic takes place away from all of that. And it's just a normal Justice League story with the characters you love. So you have Superman with his secret identity. You have Batman and just all of the Justice League telling this awesome story, which is what I wanted to get back to, is back to basics. So I wasn't a huge fan of Convergence. I fucking hate Secret Wars. You're
wrong, but whatever.
What I like is that it's taking these characters and it's able to say hey, we're going to tell this Justice League story over here, and it's going to be one thing. And then you guys can do whatever you want to do over here. It doesn't need to be one big intricate thing. It just needs to be good storytelling.
Sure.
Which I really appreciate. So I recommend Justice League of America.
All right, cool. I will probably never read it. Not because you recommended it or anything. I'm not a big fan of DC, and I've never really been a fan of Justice League, to be honest with you.
So I actually forgot I wanted to say this, and I know you're going to disagree with me, and it'd be a fun argument. So I think DC is doing everything better than Marvel right now, except for movies.
No, you're wrong.
Better TV, better comics, better video games, better everything except for
I would agree
movies.
with TV and video games. You're completely wrong on comics. Completely.
Disagree.
No, Secret Wars is good. I don't care what you say. Secret Wars is fucking awesome.
All right. What comic are you into?
I am into a Secret Wars tie-in, sort of. It's called Amazing Spider-Man #1, Renew Your Vows. Which is weird because it has the Secret Wars stamp on it, but it's completely different. As far as I know, I mean, it has nothing to do with Secret Wars, and it really has nothing to do with Amazing Spider-Man. which is weird. It seems like it's its own self-contained story. It feels to me like it's a kind of a what if storyline.
Yeah.
Because way back when Peter Parker was married to Mary Jane at one point, and they actually had a kid. And I think they took away the kid after the Clone Saga a while back. And then there was another storyline. I think it was called what was it? One More Day, where they completely got rid of the marriage itself as well. And this is kind of, well, what if this didn't ever happen? What if they were still married and they still had this kid? It's kind of like Dan Slott's version of, like, he's almost retconning it a little bit. And it's interesting. I like it a lot. Like I said, it's weird because it has that Secret Wars stamp on the front of it, but then it has nothing to do with Secret Wars. I really appreciate how the stakes are really high in this comic book. Like, there's a particular twist at the end. Dan Slott kind of shows you what Spider-Man is willing to, well, basically the stakes are so high that he's willing to kind of sacrifice part of himself, kind of part of his identity as Spider-Man, to save his family. And it's really interesting. I like it a lot. There's a B story. I'm going to say it's a B story because I think the stuff with Spider-Man's family is more important in this comic book. So there's a bit of a B story where the Avengers are fighting this. I'm assuming it's a brand new villain because I've never heard of him. And there's like a couple of panels of like him explaining who he is. And they usually don't do that with a pretty established character. And it just seems so out of place. So I'm assuming that that particular villain is going to play a huge role in the upcoming issues. But I just wasn't a huge fan of that villain. It was kind of just blah for me. I really appreciated Spider-Man, and he was actually fighting Venom in this book. So it's really interesting, and I just like how high the stakes are. So I appreciate it. I really liked it. I mean, I've had my problems with Dan Slott before, but he always seems to kind of redeem himself.
Yeah, I have this title sitting on my shelf ready to read. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
All right, cool, man.
All right, you ready to get into some nerd news?
Yeah, for sure.
So not a ton of nerd news this week. We will get into E3 a little bit because that was like the big thing this week, obviously, in nerd culture. But basically, nerd news is the segment each week where we talk about, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Any of the nerd news and nerd headlines that have broke since the last time we spoke. So just a few this week, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, kind of a slower week for nerd news, but we'll just dive right in. So Forrest Whitaker is being courted for Star Wars Rogue One. Yeah. I honestly don't really like him that much as an actor. I think that he's kind of fallen a little bit over the last 3 years. He's hit or miss,
definitely.
Like he won his Oscar for The Last King of Scotland, right?
Yep.
And since then, he's just kind of done some shit movies.
Yeah.
So I'm not for or against it. It's just kind of whatever, but we'll see.
I think when he has the right role, he's really good.
Yep.
And so hopefully it's this role. Yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I mean, obviously we're going to see it regardless.
Yeah, yeah. They could say that they could cast Cher in this movie. Be like, well, that's weird, but still going to go see it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So Matthew Vaughn was talking this week about how he is developing a Hit Girl prequel to Kick-Ass, which is actually, there is a Hit Girl graphic novel that is a prequel to Kick-Ass. So he's basically going to be adapting that. Who knows if it'll get greenlit or anything, but it's basically going to tell the story of Hit Girl and how her and Big Daddy came to be doing what they were doing at the beginning of Kick-Ass. So I know you weren't a huge fan of Kick-Ass, and you probably never even saw the second one.
I have seen the second one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, the second one, not very great at all. But there is a Kick-Ass 3 comic that ties up the entire storyline that Mark Millar created with Kick-Ass 1, Kick-Ass 2, and Hit Girl. So I would like to see these movies get made because...
So there would have to be 2 more movies, right?
Yeah, he wants to do this Hit Girl prequel, and hopefully he's hoping that brings back some of the audience that they lost with Kick-Ass 2, and then once the studio sees the audience is still there, they'll greenlight Kick-Ass 3 and they can finish it up. Which is a whole lot of hoping and guessing, and I'm surprised he's going on record saying this kind of stuff. But I would like to see all of this get kind of wrapped up, because I am a pretty big fan of this story, and I just like things to be completed. So it would be cool to see them get to complete it with these last 2 movies.
Yeah, it'd be cool. And it's an interesting way instead of just doing a lot of times when there's 4 movies in a franchise and one of them's a prequel, it's usually like, okay, well, we gave you these 3. Now we're just trying to milk a little bit more money out of the franchise. So we're going to give you a prequel.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that they're kind of reversing that a little bit and giving you the first 2 movies and then a prequel and then the 3rd movie. So it's an interesting way to do it if it does kind of.
I'm curious if they would bring back Chloe Grace Moretz, because
she's getting kind of old.
Yeah, she's grown up, but I mean, she doesn't look a ton different either. So it's weird, but I would imagine they'd recast her.
I don't know if they could do it within the next year or so. I don't think it would be that big of a deal.
You know, now that I think about it, I'd have to look it up. I'm not 100% sure, but the Hit Girl comic might not be a prequel. It might be a bridge between Kick-Ass 2 and 3. I'd have to look it up, but either way, maybe this prequel would be 100% original.
Okay.
I'm not sure. All right, moving on. This is actually the last bit of nerd news I have before we get into some of the stuff that was announced at E3. So the new Ghostbusters movie has a synopsis, and there's been some set pictures, and Paul Feig tweeted a picture of him out fucking with some slime or something, indicating that I guess Slimer will be in this movie. So I'm going to read the synopsis.
Okay, cool, because I was trying to avoid it, but whatever.
Oh, were you really? It's just a synopsis.
I don't like to know I don't like to know things about movies.
That's so weird. Like, whenever the teaser trailer is released, to say more about this movie than this paragraph says.
Okay, fine, whatever, just read it.
Wig and McCarthy.
La 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 la, I'm just kidding.
Wig and McCarthy play a pair of unheralded authors who write a book posting that ghosts are real. Flash forward a few years, and Wig lands a prestigious teaching position at Columbia University, which is pretty sweet until her book resurfaces and she is laughed out of academia. Wig reunites with McCarthy and the other 2 packing Phantom Wranglers, and she gets some sweet revenge.
Say that 5 times fast.
No shit. I should have practiced this. Wig reunites with McCarthy and the other 2 packing Phantom Wranglers, and she gets some sweet revenge when ghosts invade Manhattan and she and her team have to save the world.
That was embarrassing for you.
I feel like I did all right.
Yeah.
So that's a movie that's coming out next year, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We talked about it a little bit last episode with Chris Hemsworth being cast as a receptionist, and we talked about it a few times, but I think it's in good hands. And if you're not going to be able to make Ghostbusters 3 with the original cast, especially now that Harold Ramis has passed away, like why just kill the franchise? Why not kind of breathe life into it? So I'm all for it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a fan of SNL, and a lot of the women in this particular, I guess reboot or reimagine or whatever you want to call it are from SNL. So I like that. I like Leslie Jones. Yeah. She's really funny on SNL. So we'll see, what type of character that she plays.
Is Kate McKinnon still on SNL?
Yes. Okay. Her Leslie Jones are still on it. I can't remember the 4th one that's in this movie.
Oh, it's Melissa McCarthy, who's never been on SNL.
Well, yeah, I mean, she hosts. She's hosted a couple times.
Kristen Wiig, who's not.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I forgot about her for some reason. Which is weird because it's either her or Melissa McCarthy is the most famous of the 4 people, and I could list the 2 least famous of the 4. But
what's interesting is they don't say the names of the characters. They refer to the characters as Wiig and McCarthy. Yeah. So I'm wondering if they'll go with the names of the characters from the original movie, or if they will just give them something else or something that's like...
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
So I wonder why they're keeping that quiet, but well, I guess we'll see as time goes on.
Yep.
All right, let's talk a little bit of E3.
Okay, cool.
I just pulled out some of the bigger headlines, and looking at my list, I'll give everybody a heads up. I do have more stuff for the Xbox than I do for Nintendo or Sony, because I think Pat and I are a little biased as we both have Xbox Ones. I guess you have a Nintendo Wii U, though.
Yes, I do.
When was the last time you played that? I guess you play Super Smash Bros.
I play Smith.
When was the last time you bought a new game for it?
Super Smash Brothers.
How long ago was that?
I don't remember when it came out. I want to say it was like December or November, something like that.
That's not too long, I guess.
Yeah.
But obviously not your favorite console.
It's been like 6 months.
Yeah, not your favorite console. All right, so let's just start with Nintendo. I have 2 games that they announced. Star Fox Zero.
Yep.
Any thoughts on? I've never played a Star Fox game.
Oh, really? They're a lot of fun.
I know that's going to really harm my nerd cred, especially since I had Nintendo systems all throughout the 90s.
I actually didn't ever own a Nintendo 64, and I've played Star Fox. I mean, my brother had it, so I used to play it all the time.
Star Fox was as him in Super Smash Brothers.
He sucks in this new game.
Does he?
Yeah.
I liked him a lot in the original Super Smash Brothers. He was one of my few go-to characters.
Yeah.
But no, I had Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and never played a Star Fox game. So, all right, next game is Super Mario Maker, which allows you to make, I'm assuming, make Super Mario levels utilizing all sorts of different things that have been in past Mario games. So I didn't read too much about it. It sounds interesting, but call me old-fashioned. I'd rather just play levels that people have designed for me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's cool. It seems like it would be a cool thing to have like on a new Mario game, like as a different game mode. I don't know how it would work as its own game.
I guess you could maybe, I don't know if they're doing this, and I don't know what the online play for a Wii U is like, but I guess theoretically you could upload your levels to a server and other people could play them, and that'd be kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have nothing to back that up.
I guess the whole Minecraft thing that's all that is, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really relate it to Minecraft, and that's super huge. So I guess maybe they're trying to do something kind of in that vein.
Yeah,
with a character that people actually love.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go. I have Xbox next, but let's go ahead and do Sony.
Okay, cool.
And save Xbox for last. Man, I'm really biased. Sorry, guys, if you're a PS4 owner. So I have two stories for Sony, and this first one is a big one. Final Fantasy VII is being remade for current generation console.
Never played any of those games.
So I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan. I tried to play a few, and I definitely know I'm in the minority there. I have tons of gamer friends who this is their favorite game of all time.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, and I just never got into it for some reason.
Yeah, but this is big for a lot of people. Not necessarily me and you, but it would be like if I can't think of a game off the top of my head I would like to see remade for Xbox One, but one of my favorite games of all time is Resident Evil 4, and they remade that for the 360, which I loved, even though it was just going from PlayStation 2 to Xbox 360. Like, that's not a huge jump. Whereas this is a huge jump going from...
For sure.
What console was that out on? Was it PlayStation 1?
Yeah.
So going from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 4, that's a huge jump. So I mean, it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm sure a lot of people I know a lot of people are really excited. So good on Sony. I like that. I like that idea.
Sure.
All right. And then, of course, Uncharted 4, which is the one regret I have about not ever owning a PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4.
Yeah, those games look pretty awesome.
Yeah, my roommate in college had a PlayStation 3 and he loved the Uncharted games, and I got to play them a little bit, and they're awesome. And I really wish that they were out for Xbox, but they're not. So
nope, never played a single second of those games, but they look awesome.
Yeah. See, so we really did not have a lot to say about Nintendo and Sony stuff, which is kind of sad. But let's get into Xbox. So the big thing with Xbox was that they announced that they're going to be rolling out backwards compatibility for Xbox 360 games. Yep. And I don't know, is it all Xbox 360 games?
No, there's only there's like 30 or something.
Okay.
And I don't think I own any of those games either.
I wish I had the list in front of me because I'm curious what they are, but I'll have to look that up after we're done recording.
I was kind of pissed because I just sold a bunch of my Xbox 360 stuff because I hadn't heard anything about it being backwards compatible. And now they just came out like a couple months later. Oh yeah, by the way, here's 30 some games and more coming that.
See, I love the idea of it, and I love that Xbox
for sure.
is doing this, but I honestly don't know if I'm going to go back and play any Xbox 360 games.
I like the idea that I could possibly do it.
Exactly.
But with everything else going on, it'd be tough, but I mean, I still have my GameCube in hopes that I'll eventually go back and play Twin Snakes.
Yeah.
And I have Mario Kart, and my wife and I occasionally play that. But
but there's no Mario Kart for Xbox 360. Like, there's no game I can think of that I want to go back and play whereas I'd rather just have them make a sequel to.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there's going to be Gears of War 4. I know that you mentioned you're not huge into these games, but these were games that my buddies and I were really big into throughout high school and college. One of my friends in particular, him and I played every single one of these games together, co-op mode. And I remember one of the games had a horde mode that was really fun.
Yeah.
And
it was like 2 or 3.
It might have been 2.
Yeah.
The one that I'm sure 3 had it as well, but the one that we played a ton of was 2, and we ended up actually beating all 60 waves, which was awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
They're fun games. It's not like something I'm on the edge of my seat for like I am for Arkham Knight that comes out this week, but it's something that I'll pick up and I'll play and kind of have a bit of nostalgia there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've played most of 1 and I enjoyed what I played, but for some reason I just didn't get into it like I get into Halo and the Arkham games, and I am getting into Witcher. And
that's one of the few games too where I'd rather play the campaign than multiplayer, because I was, for whatever reason, fucking awful at Gears of War multiplayer. Because I don't know if it was the third person thing or what, but every match was just something pissed me off. So, all right, we're going to continue with the Elite controller they're releasing for Xbox. It's going to cost $150. And I skimmed an article about it, and it basically just looks like a really fancy Xbox 360 controller. Like, pieces of it come off, and there's grips and buttons on the back, and there's a lot of bells and whistles, but in the end, I could never see me paying $150 for a controller.
No, fuck that. I don't even own a second Xbox One controller because I don't want to pay the money for it. Because when am I going to I don't have that many friends. So when am I going to have somebody over and to play the Xbox with me?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people get really into their controllers and their hardware, and this thing will probably sell quite a bit, but I don't think we're going to be the market they're looking for.
No.
All right. This next game I'm super excited for, and I know that you aren't. It's Rise of the Tomb Raider.
No.
So when you got your Xbox One, I went to Coconuts with you, which sells used video games, and you were like, "Oh, what should I get?" And we were talking you into getting Tomb Raider pretty hardcore because they re-released it for Xbox One after it had been released for Xbox 360, the newest Tomb Raider game, and you were like, "Okay, I'll get it, but I'm never going to play it."
And I have not played it.
The game is so good, though.
It broke my Xbox.
Did it really?
Well, it did. It didn't. My Xbox was broken, but that was like the last straw. Like, it wouldn't let me. I downloaded that game to start playing. I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of bored and I want to play a video game, and I haven't played this one yet. And my Blu-rays weren't playing right.
I remember that, yeah.
And then I downloaded that game, and then that was like the last straw. And it was like, oh, the game's not actually in the thing. And I'm like, yeah, it is. So that was kind of the last straw, and I had to send my Xbox away.
So you're never going to put it back into your Xbox?
No, I'm definitely not.
No, but in all seriousness, it's an awesome game. And Rise of the Tomb Raider looks pretty cool too, so I'm really excited for that. Last game to talk about really quick for Xbox is, of course, Halo 5.
Yep.
So we talked about it last episode. I don't know that I have any more new information about it that was uncovered at E3, but it's just a game that I think we're both really looking forward to. So
yeah, it's going to be tough for me because I pre-ordered Halo 5, just the standard edition, because I think the only special edition I found was like $200 and some dollars. Or no, there was a limited edition that was like $100, but it didn't seem like it was worth it. And so I pre-ordered that, and I also pre-ordered Star Wars Battlefront. And it turns out they're like going to be released like 3 weeks apart. And so that's going to be tough because Halo comes out first, and I'm just going to play the shit out of that game. And then Star Wars Battlefront's going to come out like 3 weeks later. So it's going to be tough for me to really get all I want out of Halo before Star Wars Battlefront comes out.
Yeah, that is. I hate when that happens. But both of those games are games I'm going to buy too, and I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll have to, I guess, do what you did. Play Halo for 3 weeks, put it down, play Star Wars for a while, and then go back to Halo. Or
yeah.
I mean, we'll see, I guess, when the games come out and how they are.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That's all I have for nerd news and E3 coverage.
All right, cool. So our next segment is just our main topic. It changes from episode to episode. This week, we're going to do a Inside Out review. Tyler and I are both big Pixar fans. We're also just fans of the animated genre as a whole. So we're going to do a Inside Out review. As always, I'm going to do my little synopsis. This one's a little bit longer than it normally is because the concept itself is a little bit complicated. So here we go. Pixar Animation Studios' first film in 2 years, Inside Out, follows Riley, a young girl who gets uprooted from her Minnesota home when her father starts a new job, while her emotions, fear, disgust, and anger try to navigate a new city without the help of joy and sadness. A little bit longer than normal.
Not bad, though.
Yeah. I'm all right. I'm all right at it. Normally, we just kind of start with our broad strokes, and I let Tyler go first because by the time I'm done with my synopsis, I'm usually kind of tired of talking. But I want to say before we get started, how fucking cool was Lava?
It was pretty cool.
I loved it.
The short films that they do before any Pixar movie usually knock it out of the park.
I fucking loved this one, though.
Yeah. I'm surprised to hear you just gush about it. Like, I thought it was all right. Like, it's not my favorite.
It.
I think I like, what was it, Feast?
Which I have not seen yet.
You haven't seen the dog one?
No.
What was that in front of last year?
Big Hero 6.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one more.
Okay.
But yeah, this was good. I mean, these short films that are put in front of all of these Disney animated movies are always really great. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I was, for whatever reason, it caught me off guard that you loved it so much, but
I really did. I loved it.
I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Inside Out, broad strokes. What'd you think?
Thought it was really awesome. A return to form for Pixar for sure after being off basically for 2 years. And I've gone on record many a times about how much I loved Monsters University, and I don't see how it's been panned, but people see that as a downfall of Pixar as well as Cars 2, which I would agree with the Cars 2 part. But this is definitely a return to form as far as originality goes. And I love that it's able to tell such an adult story, an animated form that's perfectly acceptable for children.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not the first time Pixar's done that. Toy Story 3, Up, the list goes on and on about adult themes being in within these movies. This one just does it so beautifully, and I honestly think that it's one of the better things Pixar's put out in the last few years. Obviously, since they didn't put out anything last year. Yeah,
I completely agree with you. You said a lot of the stuff that I was gonna talk about, and I guess I'll kind of just echo that. Pixar is known for doing a great job of giving us a story that children can love, but also their parents can appreciate as well. And this might be one of the, if not best examples, one of the better examples. I would say it's not the best just because I think it honestly is more of a grown-up movie than a kid's movie. Like, a kids can appreciate it. There are jokes in there, and I mean, there's bright colors and everything. Yeah. So, I mean, I think kids can enjoy it, but I think this is much more of a film that's geared toward adults because it's more of a complex story.
I think the only reason the Bing Bong character was in this movie was to be like, oh shit, we gotta throw something in here for the kids.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very much an adult theme that runs throughout it.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's definitely a return to form. I would say I don't like the Cars franchise. Yeah. I really just don't like those movies. I love the Monsters University, but I think a lot of people didn't like it because it was a sequel.
Yeah.
And Pixar is so great at making original. Well, yeah, whatever. Pixar is really great at making original content. And yeah, it's a prequel for one of the original movies, but it's still a prequel or a sequel or whatever you want.
I mean, I've said this before on the podcast when we were first getting started because it was in my top 10 of 2013. But what I loved about Monsters University was they basically told you, you know, honestly, you can't do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody's going to be an astronaut or not everybody's going to do this or that. There's some things you're probably just not going to be cut out for, but that's okay.
Yeah. But my problem wasn't with, well, I had a problem with Cars 2, but I just don't like those movies.
That's the only Pixar movie I've never seen.
Oh, really?
Cars 2.
I didn't have a problem with Monsters University. I loved it and didn't love it as much as you did. My problem was with Brave. I just didn't get it. I just didn't like it. I thought that was more detrimental to the Pixar name than Cars 2 or Monsters University.
I'd agree. I wouldn't say it's my least favorite Pixar movie because I would reserve that spot for Cars. And if I ever get around to watching Cars 2, I can't imagine it'd be better than Brave.
I group those two movies together, Cars
Yeah.
and Cars 2, because they're just, I don't like Cars. So I can't really judge Cars 2 because I just don't, I've seen it. I own it actually, but I'll never watch it again.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. And getting back on the Inside Out tip of things.
Yeah.
You definitely a return to form after faltering with these past few movies that we've talked about.
And you mentioned, the message of Monsters University. I love the message in this movie.
No, this message in this movie was fucking fantastic.
I mean, I liked the idea of kind of telling kids, and if they're smart enough to get it, that it's okay to be sad sometimes. Like, sadness leads to other things, like you bond with your family because they are trying to make you happy. And I loved how they kind of put that in there, that theme of, okay, it's okay to be sad every once in a while. You don't always have to be happy, and that sometimes it's more detrimental if you pretend to be happy when you're really sad.
Yeah, for sure. This movie is very emotionally sophisticated.
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
I love that it teaches the kids in the audience what you just said. Like, it's, all of your emotions are important. Not everybody's going to be happy all the time. I do think that they missed a great opportunity here, and I honestly thought this was where this movie was going to lead, to talk a little bit about mental health.
I kind of thought that especially with the whole Robin Williams thing happening within the last year, that they were going to tackle kind of depression.
Yeah.
And they didn't really touch on that. And maybe it's because they do want to gear towards the kids a little bit.
Maybe that's way too adult.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I think that they missed an opportunity there, because there are dumb people out there that really don't think that mental health issues are real medical issues, and those people are dumb, and that would have been a good way for, Pixar to get on board with things. But even though they didn't go that route, I mean, obviously, I'm not faulting them for the route they did go. I thought that it was still a very important movie. Yeah,
for sure. And let's just kind of dive into the story a little bit, since we're kind of already talking about it anyways. Yeah. I loved how, I don't want to say simple, because it's not a simple movie, but the way they were able to take such a complex concept and present it in such a simple and kind of compact way.
Yeah, I actually have that in my notes as well. Like, this movie, for all intents and purposes, is very complex, but you don't think so watching it.
Yeah. And I loved how, and great movies do this, and spoiler alert, I think this is a great movie. They feed you exposition, but you don't care. You know that they're feeding you exposition, but you don't care because you're enjoying watching it so much.
Yeah.
And I think this movie definitely does that, especially in the beginning with joy and sadness and her reading the manuals and stuff like that. You know that that's gonna play a big part later in the movie, and it actually kind of doesn't. But it does play at least a little bit of a role.
Yeah. As far as the story goes, I think that, you touched on how complex it was, and not only complex, but really inventive. And you're telling this story from 2 points of view. You're telling it as the human characters, and you're telling it as the characters within their minds. And that, I imagine that was really hard to do, and it could have failed in certain scenes because it's so complex to kind of put those two different types of storytelling together in the same scene, but they execute it flawlessly.
I really appreciated how they didn't always play it for comedy, because basically the concept of it is whatever these characters, these emotions, whatever happens to them affects that person. And you've seen this in other movies, and it's played to comedy, and it's not played that way in this movie, and it's done really beautifully. The one problem, and this is really the main problem I had with this whole movie, was I don't like when movies create artificial obstacles for characters to overcome. And I felt like the middle of this movie was just one artificial obstacle after another. And it just kind of bugged me a little bit. They missed the train of thought, which I thought was really clever, but it's coming again. Why don't you just fucking sit there and wait for the other one to come? Because eventually it's going to come. They do kind of justify about, well, we don't know when it's going to come, and we got to get there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it within the construct of the movie that they want to explore the whole area, but I don't like when they create artificial obstacles because it just feels, artificial.
And that's all that it was for Joy and Sadness's adventure to get back to headquarters.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just one obstacle after another. And that's not, I almost overlook it because I wasn't even fixated on that. I was fixated more on the larger story, I guess, and it didn't bug me as much. But you're absolutely right. Like those, it was kind of, I don't want to say it was lazy storytelling because there's nothing about this movie that's lazy, but I think it could have been done better.
Yeah. And there's one thing, and I'm kind of interested to see what you think about this that I noticed while watching the movie, and I'm curious what they were going for. I noticed something in this movie, and maybe I'm looking into it more than I should be, but it seemed like every character, like if they were a male, all their emotions were males. If they were female, every emotion was a female. But with Riley, who is a girl, obviously, some of her emotions were male and some of her emotions were female. Is it something maybe because they do make a puberty joke later in the movie? Is it something like once you go through puberty, your emotions become more defined, or they were trying to make some transgender?
That's maybe she identifies with the.
And maybe, it might be just more simple that she's a tomboy. She likes hockey. So maybe she has that's what they were going for. I don't know. It seemed like really weird to me that some of her emotions were boys and some of her emotions were girls. And then everybody else was either all female or all male.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even notice that. Like even when at the end, like I don't want to spoil anything, but towards the end of the movie, you see many different people and creatures, what's going on inside their heads. And you're right. Every single one of them, the gender identifies with whatever gender the person is.
Yeah. So I don't know what they were going for with that.
That's weird. Huh. I didn't even notice.
Yeah. So I'd like to think that they were making some kind of statement about transgender, but I highly doubt it because they don't really say anything about it. They don't really follow through on it. But I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Wow. I can't believe I didn't notice.
Yeah. I'm just smarter than you.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a lot about the emotions, and it's tough to talk about performances with an animated movie, but I think the voices in this movie were kind of pitch perfect, like the casting choices. You have Bill Hader as Fear, who, he can kind of do everything. So I thought that was a really good casting. You have, Mindy Kaling as Disgust, and she, in her show, Mindy Project, she kind of basically plays a human version of her character in this movie, which I thought was really great. You have Amy Poehler as Joy, which was fantastic. She's just great. So she probably could have played any of these characters
Very
and
much Leslie Knope.
Yeah.
Inspired. Yeah.
And then, of course, you have Lewis Black as Anger, who is just perfect because he's just an angry old man. So he played that really well. But, they had Phyllis Smith from The Office do Sadness, and she just stole the show.
Oh yeah. She was awesome.
It was just fucking pitch perfect. It was great.
Yeah.
I loved her. She was just,
the voice acting throughout the whole movie was great. And I've never, even the bad Pixar movies, well, not even bad, like Cars, like they always hit the mark with the voice actors.
Yeah. But she definitely stole the show. Her dynamic with Joy and playing off of Amy Poehler's just like Leslie Knope, just enthusiasm, just pouring out her ears, and then Phyllis being just kind of mopey, and it was really funny.
Yeah, it was.
Yep. So, that's pretty much all we can talk about with the performances, because it's kind of hard with an animated movie.
What's the guy's name from Spin City that played Bing Bong? Because he was good too.
Oh, it bothered me the whole time because I could not think of what that, I couldn't put a face to it, because a lot of times when I'm watching animated movies, sometimes I like to put the face to the voice actor, and I could not think of not only could I not think of his face, but I could not think of his name.
It's Richard Kind.
All right.
Yeah. I say he's from Spin City. I think that's what he's probably most well known for, but he's been in a ton of other stuff as well. He's a great character.
And that character's arc was really cool. I liked it.
Yeah. I almost thought he was going to end up being a bad guy for whatever reason.
Yeah. 'Cause they don't really follow through on why he was stealing those memories.
Yeah. I guess maybe they were just memories of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but either way, he was great in it.
Yeah, for sure. The animation, I mean, it's Pixar, so it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's literally nothing, there was nothing in here that I was just like, oh, well, that's kind of shitty, or that was they dropped the ball on this particular scene or whatever. Yeah. I thought, I mean, it's all beautiful. The bright colors for the kids, as always, and I mean, they just did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I agree. It was very much, looking at it, and you look at the poster, look at the trailer, it very much looks like a little kid's movie.
Yeah.
So it's just, again, I know we've said it multiple times, it's just so crazy that the content was so adult.
Yeah. And I loved how each emotion had their kind of their own thing, like their own distinguishing characteristic, or not necessarily characteristic, but just like Disgust had the long eyelashes, and each character had their own thing. Like Sadness had glasses, and she was kind of almost like a droopy posture to her.
Which is another thing. Whenever you got inside other people's heads, their characters or their emotions all looked very similar, except for the color.
Yeah.
Whereas Riley's emotions had their own characteristics.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, makes sense. You spend half the movie inside her head.
Yeah.
So you don't want them to look the exact same. But I just, again, wonder why they didn't do that with everyone else's.
Yeah. So that's all I got for Inside Out.
All right. No, I think that's sums it up nicely. There was a lot of great humor in it, and there was a lot of great drama in it, and definitely played with our emotions as well.
Yeah. So, star rating.
4.5.
Okay. I will have to agree with you. I'm going to give it 4.5 as well. It's right up there with Mad Max as far as my favorite movie so far this year.
Yeah, I would say that Mad Max and Kingsman are all, for me, towards the top tier right now. And obviously,
Kingsman for me is that second tier.
Is it?
Yeah. So it'll probably, right now, I think it would be either 3 or 4. I don't have the list in front of me right now.
But obviously, we're just now halfway into the year, and we're not even towards awards season yet, so there's a lot of stuff left to come out. But
yeah,
right now, Inside Out's definitely towards the top for me.
All right, cool. So 4.5 for both of us. Our last segment, it's just titled Nerd Favorite. We take turns asking each other what your favorite blank is. And since we just reviewed Inside Out and it's my week, I'm just going to go with favorite Pixar film. And this is going to be tough for the both of us because, like I mentioned before, we're both big Pixar fanboys. So for me, it was really tough between Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., WALL-E, and even I almost wanted to pick this movie because I really loved it, but I thought that would be kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
Oh, yeah.
I actually ended up going with WALL-E.
Okay.
Mostly because I love Toy Story, but for me, I loved how they conveyed so much emotion with not a whole lot of actual language because WALL-E doesn't talk.
Yeah.
And I loved how they told that love story without any actual communication. I mean, of course, there's body language and whatnot, but I just loved how clever it was that they told this story with not a whole lot of talking. I love the subtext of the film and is always going to have a special place in my heart because that was our first mandate.
I knew you were going to fucking say that.
Yeah, that was the first movie we ever saw together.
I know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What year did that come out? Like 2007? 2008?
Something like that.
2008, maybe.
Yeah.
And then a couple months later, we went and saw The Dark Knight. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, WALL-E, I mean, that's an amazing movie. Like this movie, it kind of has an adult message.
For sure.
But very much humorous at points and characters that you love that don't even talk. And just everything about it is perfect. So that's a great choice.
Yeah. So what is your favorite Pixar film?
My favorite Pixar film is Toy Story 3.
Okay. And they should have died at the end.
I'm a sucker for this movie because of the nostalgia. Toy Story, the original Toy Story it was my jam when it came out. And I love that movie so much. I love Toy Story 2. And then for this movie to come out however many years later at a time whenever I was in college, and I very much associated very closely to the Andy character, leaving things from your childhood behind at that point in your life. It just struck all the right chords with me whenever I saw it. The drama in it was amazing, and I love the end scenes. Like, everybody talks about the scene where they almost die, and I know you have your
They should have
In their
died.
opinion, they should have died. But that scene's not as impressive to me as just like the very end of the movie where Andy decides to give up his toys to a little girl and all that shit. Like, I'll be honest, I cried whenever I first saw that movie.
Pussy.
So it was just, I remember seeing it in IMAX 3D and just being blown away by it. So, definitely my favorite movie, Toy Story 3. The humor's great, drama's great, and like I said, I'm a sucker for the nostalgia.
All right, cool, man. I picked WALL-E because, I mean, obviously I believe in the reasons I gave, but also because for the sake of conversation, I knew you were going to lean towards Toy Story. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to steal your answer. No, but I love WALL-E. I stand by what I said.
WALL-E's
Yeah.
up there. And that'd be a cool episode to maybe do in the future sometime is ranking all of the Pixar movies.
Yeah. We might do a Pixar retrospective someday.
That'd be
Maybe
really
when,
awesome.
well, we have pretty much the rest of the year planned out, but I was thinking maybe leading up to Good Dinosaur, but that's not going to work out with our schedule.
Yeah, except for the few movies we almost talk more about their faults than their successes, but besides those few movies, like, they just consistently knock it out of the park and they amaze me. So I'm really looking forward to Good Dinosaur. It's awesome that we get 2 Pixar movies this year.
Yeah, for sure. All right. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at The Nerds Podcast, like us on Facebook, follow us on Google+, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. We just got added to TuneIn, which is a new streaming music and podcast app. So definitely check us out there. You can email us, thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. Any comments, suggestions for future episodes, basically anything you want. If we like your email, we will email you back and even mention it on the show. So definitely do that. Check us out. We are booth 738 at Indie PopCon next weekend. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Like we've mentioned before, I will not be there Friday. So if you haven't already got your tickets, definitely get Saturday and Sunday. We're planning on doing some live recording. Like we mentioned.
I'm going to be there. You can still come see me.
I don't know if it's worth the $25 or whatever tickets are. No, of course I'm kidding. We're going to be doing live recording at the booth. Like we mentioned, we're going to be asking you what you're into. We also have some time on their podcasting stage. I believe we're Saturday 5 from 5 to 5:45. So definitely check us out there. We're going to be giving away things at the booth. We're going to have candy again. So, there's that. I think that's about it. Oh, we have free merch. The Nerds Are Looking For a merch. So if you, want some stickers or what have you, we're definitely going to have that. I think that's about it. Oh, vote for us for Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. And I was doing so well and then I started to ramble. But I think that's about it.
All right. Awesome.
All right. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the Nerds You're Looking For. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys.